Welcome to Ask Me Anything. This is a really important segment because this is an opportunity for our Facebook members to, our brand new Facebook members to have their questions answered, the things that are on their minds that are really, pressing on their concerns, where they're wondering what to do in circumstances like, conflicts and power struggles. I know Radha was wondering about that. And, Anna, I know that you were thinking about how you can take care of yourself and be a better parent when you have such limited time and resources. Others are asking about, what do I do to manage my child with ADHD better and support them in their growth? Some of you really want to get things right and teach their kids how to respect others and not hit, push, or throw. I know CJ was asking about that. So here we are getting you some support. And if you're here listening live or on this replay, feel free to write your question in the chat or in the comments below so that I can address them. Okay, so anytime we have these Ask Me Anything events, you can come and get your questions answered too. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in with Radha's question. So Radha says that her children are 6.5 and 3.5, and she really wants to know more about how to deal with conflict and power struggles in a calm and firm way. So Radha, I'm going to make sure to tag you in this spot so you can find it. Now, what I've noticed is that when we're talking about things like power struggles and conflicts, oftentimes there are a lot of different things going on, right, within the situation. So it could be that you have your kids are, as siblings, they really can rub each other the wrong way and irritate each other. Maybe one is even annoying the other on purpose, which is very common. I've seen in my hundreds of conversations with parents over the last 20 years. You'll have one who just knows how to push the buttons of the other. And if that's your sibling pair or more, let me know if you have multiples at home. But for Radha, something I can say about conflict is that oftentimes we focus on getting it to stop, and we don't always address like the root of the conflict. And so one tool that I share with the parents in my year-long program, my Family Foundations Immersion, is something called an I statement. And you've heard about I statements before, perhaps, and it can sound a little like, I don't know, formulaic maybe, like it's a script that they have to follow. And but there's something really magical about the I statement, and I actually like to call it something different. Instead of the I statement as in coming from the I also like to think of it as an impact statement. Because a lot of times, even especially your 6.5-year-old Radha, and any of you who have kids who are like 4.5 and up, you can start to teach them I statements, because what happens is it gives them a way of getting across the basic information of what will be the beginnings of solving the conflict. So I feel frustrated when you grab it from my hand. I'm thinking your 6.5-year-old Radha talking to your 3.5-year-old. I feel frustrated when you grab it from my hand because I was still using it. And then they can follow with a wish or an ask, right? You can say, can you ask first and say, can I have a turn, right? That to me is like such a breakthrough in communication between siblings, when one is able to share an impact statement. And I put a little draft of it, by the way, into the comments of the Facebook group live. It says, I feel blank when blank because blank. Now, we can take for granted that kids and people in general know how to share their feelings and describe the situation and give the reason. But I bet all of you right now could think of at least one adult who does not know how to do this well. Just think, somebody who doesn't express how they feel, and they won't tell you why it's happening or why it matters. They won't even maybe describe what happened. Yeah. If someone comes to mind, then just know that, of course, this is a learned skill, right? This is something that we need to maybe even be instructed on to, be able to use it in their daily lives. Now, focusing back to the kids, what a great opportunity to not only teach them this, but also model it for them. So in times where you'd be like, hey, stop that, right? You might go, ooh, I feel uncomfortable when you keep touching my arm because it's really hot right now. And then you can bring in your ask. Could you please, could you please put your hands somewhere else? Or could you put your hand in my hand? You can hold my hand, but I don't want you to touch my arm. So see how you could bring this in as a model. And it's just a place to start when you're in the conflict. Now, the other thing I'm going to say, Radha, is that, and for anyone else who is dealing with like really consistently having conflicts, I would encourage you to look at the whole situation. And for many of the concerns that are brought up in this Ask Me Anything, I would want you to look at the whole situation and actually take this quiz that identifies what could be contributing to these conflicts in the first place. Could be that, maybe if the routines were running more smoothly, where everybody knows their role and they kind of know what they're supposed to be doing and who's going to be helping them or not helping them, that they would have a better opportunity to get ahead of those conflicts because things are already kind of running smoothly as more of a team. Maybe it's the limits and the boundaries and expectations aren't quite clear yet. And that's another thing you can check out in this quiz, that perhaps if they were clearer and set up more in advance, for example, how siblings treat each other, what the expectations are in the car about whether they're allowed to touch each other in the car, things that could set things up for success. So there's some ways to get ahead of these conflicts and power struggles 100%. One last way could be to really address the emotional piece, like really helping our kids have more tools to cope with their hard emotions when they come up, so that instead of the hard emotions, like whether it's anger, frustration, fear, sadness, leading to a conflict, they're able to do things like soothe themselves or soothe each other or ask for help with that, because they're identifying that they need that emotional support. So if anybody listening to this has not yet taken the quiz, I really encourage you to go ahead and take that discovery quiz, just so that you can get more clarity about what might be contributing to the tough stuff in the first place. Yeah. So Radha, that's for you and anyone else who's dealing with it. Last piece I would say, Radha, and I want you to save the date for this. December 3rd, I'm going to be doing a 6-day training with a 1-day reset, calm parent reset at the end of it, called Find Your Calm in the Chaos. And it's to fill up your toolbox of ways that you, as the adult, can stay calm. And then you can also, the cool part is you can also teach those tools to your kids. So go ahead and make sure you write down that date at 10 a.m. Pacific time, running from December 3rd all the way through December 9th. We're going to be having a really great training. And if you're in the Facebook group, you get access to it for free, so you don't have to pay for it. So it's pretty exciting. So I'd want you to write that down and know, Radha, that more support is on its way. Okay. Yeah. Let's see, who else do we have here in the questions? So I was noticing that there are quite a few people here who are asking similar questions, so I might kind of put them together. For example, let's see here. We've got, oh yes, so many folks. Oh, I love it. Okay. Anna Dillman wants to know more about how to take care of herself, especially when things are challenging and stressful. How many of you would also like that, right? What are some ways that we can balance, and be a better parent when you have limited time and limited resources, either if it's because you are a single mom, or you have just a lot of different dynamics in your household that are pulling you in many different directions, or maybe you're working many hours or several jobs. There's so many ways that parents are being tapped out these days. And so what I would say to that, Anna, and anyone else who relates to this, is that start small. Start with some small wins that will build up over time. There's someone in my world called Rachel O'Mara. She's the author of this book called Pause. And she's all about taking intentional breaks to restore yourself. Even just last week, we had a self-care session with my immersion families. We have 18 families in this year-long immersion. They're traveling together as a cohort. And the ones who came to our self-care session got so much out of just 15 minutes of meditation and journaling. And it's just that opportunity to actually reset your nervous system when you've been go, 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 go. So don't think that you now have to completely radically change everything about how you do everything, because you probably won't. But instead, scaffold, and this is what we do for our kids too. We want to see big changes in their behavior. We start with the small wins. So what could be a small win, Anna, and anyone else who's listening, that you could plan in the next 48 hours where you give yourself that nervous system reset? I know for myself, as a busy entrepreneur and a very dynamic life and situation, if I can fit in one bath a week where instead of watching a show and zoning out that way, I actually take a soak and put some Epsom salt in there once everyone's to bed, that was a game changer. I just did that last night and it was so lovely. So what could you do for yourself in the next 48 hours to get the ball rolling? And so that's the self-care. And then again, I would share that life becomes more manageable when you have smoothly running routines, expectations are clear, you're getting ahead of those big emotions. So, do consider taking the quiz and leaning into some of the resources that are coming up ahead, like the Finding Your Calm in the Chaos 6-day training in December. Because the other thing that happens is not only do we need the self-care and maybe a community to practice self-care with, but we also need to get ahead of some of these things that don't need to be stressful in the first place. I remember running a classroom as a preschool teacher for 5 years and watching the master teachers and seeing what were they doing, that at the end of the day, they felt like, doing their hobbies. They weren't like wiped out. I was wiped out. How many of you have been wiped out by parenting or teaching in the last week? Yeah. So one thing I watched them do was really design great routines, get the kids on board with them, be super clear with their expectations, know how to stay calm when the kids are upset, know how to help the kids calm down, and those kinds of strategies. And that's what I built my whole program on. Well, there's a reason why I wasn't good at it at first, is because most of us didn't grow up with these models. And so little tips and tricks like how to build in those transitions so they go really well, so your kid can transition from Lego time to bath time in the evening, for example, without a huge showdown, right? Where you're in an epic battle, you have to like drag them or threaten to take away their screen time or whatever else is happening. When you get ahead of that, then you get to have that ease and that confidence and that flow that I was seeing in those master teachers that I was able to learn from and then emulate. And then I was able to have my own interns I was teaching to do the same smart things. And now I'm helping parents with that. So I would also look at it globally and make it a long-term project to iron out the wrinkles and the kinks in your kind of daily life and how things go, so you can have more teamwork and more ease. So that's sort of the long vision. But in the meantime, build in some self-care, even 15 to 30 minutes, like, a meditation or a walk or calling a friend or a nap or a bath. Yeah. Okay, good, Anna. I really like that one. And I know that you in particular expressed that as a single mom, it gets harder. Another thing I would want to go deeper on with you in particular, Anna, is what to do about helping your kid feel, like they have enough people in their life so that you're not everything to your child at all times, and how to get really self-sufficient and independent when you are busy and you need to step away. So we would be building those kinds of skills together. So hit me up if you want to chat about that more. At the end of the quiz, there's a way you can apply for a session, okay? Now we have Betsy, B, and Cynthia, who all want to know more about, and the word manage is a little bit heavy-handed, but it's true, like how to help your child with ADHD manage life. And it's not always that straightforward, because they are neurodivergent. They're not neurotypical. And one of my children, who I raised since he was 10, my stepchild, he also struggled with this, and also one of my siblings struggles with this, and has conquered it and has been victorious, and also needs to maintain a lot of different tools and skills to be able to manage life. So I'm glad you're tracking this, Betsy, B, and Cynthia, while your kids are still young, while they're still in for some of you, like Cynthia, with your 8-year-old, are still in your household. What I can say from my experience with students and with my own kids is that children with ADHD need more structure than they let on, because they are magical. They're like unicorns, I swear. They can sometimes they can do 5 things at once, and then sometimes they're literally in another magical world. It's so variable by day. And so having consistency and structure, which may not be your forte. And as a matter of fact, a lot of parents who have children with attentional challenges either also have attentional challenges or also need to bring in more structure into their daily lives. Even just being a parent of a child with ADHD requires more structure, right? So when I say structure, I am again coming back to really robust routines, really clear expectations. And then with a child with ADHD in particular, you're going to want to get even more specific, like having checklists that they can check off as they go, that they help you create. Maybe even having, if they're older, like I have some clients with teens who have ADHD and preteens, really using those sort of task apps to help them manage their timing. And you really lean on those calendar reminders so that they get prompts of it's time to get ready for soccer, or it's time to time to get ready for bed. Because one thing that's really challenging, as you already know, if you have a child with ADHD tendencies, is that or ADD tendencies, is that time management is really hard. And it's really hard on the whole family, because then you end up in these dynamics where you end up, I remember this happening before my son was diagnosed. We were just like, why are you taking so long to get ready in the morning? And what an unfair question for a child who didn't have a lot of strong time management or organizational abilities yet, right? So we shifted instead to, how can we make this morning go more smoothly and get out of the door on time? And we created a checklist. He posted it up. And some days he would look at it, some days he didn't need to. Again, variability, but the structure is there. So I would want to take a deeper dive and look at how are you structuring things for your child, and what kinds of structures are already in place, which ones could use some that could keep going, which ones could use some improvement, which are maybe missing that you never even thought of. Like one parent I worked with whose child is diagnosed with ADHD ended up coming up with a leaving routine so that they could structure the transition anytime they needed to go from one place to another. And it really helped, because otherwise it was, hey kid, give me your eyes, give me your attention, all this stuff. And sometimes the child would be able to attend to them and really focus. Other times they wouldn't. But then they came up with a cue that was a song and a sound and a hand gesture. And it just sort of fired all those neurons that needed to fire. So the executive functioning came online to be able to say, oh, I need to give you my attention and it's time to transition. Once they practiced that routine several times, the child was actually so on board. They wanted to improve on it and elaborate on it. And they really had the sense of ownership and agency over it. And it was really cool to see that. What I appreciate especially was the parents' willingness to lean into the idea of wow, you know what, this might take some coordination. This might take some conversation. And we also have to get over the hump on that, because if we assume the child should already be able to do something or should already know something, when the evidence is to the contrary, we're literally going to create conflict in our families, which kind of goes back to Radha's original question, which is why I started with it. And so how do we get ahead of that? We notice and identify wow, are they really able to do this on their own, or is this something they need support and instruction and guidance and my involvement, until we set up a structure that they can then lean into. So that can go in every space of life, whether it's running routines, whether it's getting projects done, whether it's being on vacation together, or especially school and schoolwork. So the good news is that once you do it in one zone, you can carry it over to the others. It's just a matter of having your breakthroughs in one of those zones. So I would also encourage you, Betsy, and Cynthia, if you can, take the quiz to see if there's certain areas that could use more structure, and apply for a session so we can have a further conversation if you qualify. Good stuff so far, y'all. Okay, so if you're listening to the replay, maybe write down one thing in the comments, or if you're here live, of something you got out of the last couple of tips. What stood out to you? Maybe it was adding in more structure really gives folks a plan to rest into. Checklists are great. Phone reminders are great, especially for kids who struggle with ADHD, or any organizational difficulties or cognitive challenges. Maybe it's let's get ahead of conflicts by smoothing out the routines and making expectations really clear. Maybe it's using I statements, whatever it is for you. When you write it in the comments or chat, not only do other people get to see that great idea that you like, but you will have a higher chance of actually remembering it and using it. Okay. All right. So I also have for Megan, Catherine, and Cicely a question, which is, what tips do you have for a new parent who really wants to get it right? So I know, Cicely, for you, it was just really saying, look, I have a 2-month-old and parenting is very new to me. I'm here to try to get a sense of what this is. We also have Catherine Patricia, who I don't know if you got tagged in this, but I can put you in it. Yeah, you are too. That you're really just new to the parenting thing too, just like Cicely, and want to get a sense of what it's like. You only have 2 months so far into it. But you shared you had an intense relationship as an only child to your single mom. And so you'd like to start learning things early because you are going to be the guidepost for your child as they grow. Good. Okay. Well, first of all, everything that we've shared so far applies for sure, right? Things about conflicts, using an I statement, how to get ahead of some of those conflicts and how to anticipate the need for structure, things like that, having tools to stay calm. It's really all a part of what's covered in the quiz and in my program. But what I can say right now is that I would absolutely build in a community for yourself as soon as possible. Cicely, Megan, and Catherine, I mean, maybe you can message each other even. You're kind of in a similar part of your journey, and hook up, because you're going to want to have thought partners to compare notes with. Yeah. So for example, did your child, after trying a new food, end up with green poop too? Like that's kind of the stage you're in, right? 2 months and younger. But when things get more complicated, when they start talking, when they start pushing back and learning the magic of the word no, where they maybe are starting to exhibit low frustration tolerance because suddenly they realize that they want something different than what's being offered. It's going to be really, really important, a really good idea to have other folks on the journey with you. And I know some of you are single moms by choice. You're in Sarah Kowalski's group. She's wonderful. If you ever wanted to check her out, any of you single moms who are in the early part of your journey, you'll want to check her work out. Also right here, this is a great place in the Raising Our Resilience group to be able to have conversations and get resources and make friends. And then I also create a smaller community every year in the Family Foundation's immersion, where you're able to partner up with 2 or 3 other families who are learning similar tools, and practice them together and support each other. They're called resilience support teams for a reason, because they help everyone be more resilient. Another possibility for creating community is to get a mentor, whether that's me or someone like me, who can be your thought partner as things come up. And, I think a key time to do that would be right now for finding, if you have any issues around lactation or sleep consulting. There are a lot of great people out there for you that you have kids who have under 2. Once you get to 2, that's when you're going to want to lean into tools that I share. Things like, how do you set up those routines? How do you win cooperation without using rewards and punishments? Like I just had a client finish with us an intensive with me. These great clients of mine, and I'll share their story at some point. And they have, they have a background from their parents, both being psychologists, a lot around, building independence and offering choices and things, but they didn't have the child development piece. And so and the sort of Montessori leaning piece that I bring. And so when we ended up coming together, they were able to find these like key insights that unlocked all of this great communication relationship with their kids. Like one, for example, was connecting before correcting. Yeah. So you connect with your child before you give them feedback, rather than only guiding their behavior towards what you want, which is a lot of what we do as parents, but actually connecting with them and seeing that, letting them see that you're in their world and you're paying attention and you understand before you then give feedback or direction can be so helpful, especially to get ahead of power struggles, for example. Another one is previewing. I'm just giving you a couple top tips here, by the way, my new parents. Previewing and saying, well, what's coming up next, and giving a preview so that the transitions aren't automatic and kind of sudden, so that they're not going, wait, I'm supposed to go from Legos to bath in like 1 minute or else I lose my screen time. Whoa, right? So giving them the 5-minute heads up and the 2 minutes heads up and the 1 minute heads up, and, you know, until they get used to the idea that when I say 5 minutes, I mean it, because then we get out of the bath, that will come in time. But building in those previews of transitions can be super helpful. So there's some top tips to get you started. And I would hang with us here in the group. Maybe go check out Sarah Kowalski's group, because she's got a lot of single moms in that group, if that's your demographic, and have a chance to, you know, get in with some other folks. Yeah. Okay, good. So excited for all of you who are going to come check this out when you have a chance, because you're tagged in it. So CJ Ivy, this is about respect. So she wants to know more about how to respect, or how to help your child respect others. And it sounds like there's some hitting, pushing, and throwing going on. CJ, let me know if I got that right, but that's what I pulled out of what you shared. And first of all, we have to reframe every single thing that a child does towards others or even objects as a form of communication. So what is your child trying to communicate through their hitting or through their pushing or their throwing? And one of the best things you can do for toddlers and early preschoolers is to give them the language you would have liked them to use otherwise. So here's an example. Your child is starting to hit. You can address it right away and say, whoa, hey, are you done hitting? Right? Are you done hitting? And then you can say what you do want. Can you put your hands in my hands right now? Or can you put your hands in your pockets, which works really well for 3 to 4-year-olds, by the way. And then once you get through that moment, you can also say, are you trying to tell me that you're really angry right now? Are you trying to tell me that you don't want me to put the book away? Because oftentimes what we need to do is help them swap out. So the thing they're doing is actually a message. And if we can give them words as the message, it's so much more powerful than saying, please use your words, don't hit me, use your words, right? Well, they're like in that moment, and we'll explain this more in some emotional mastery work that we do later in this group, and that I do with my clients. But their lid is so far off, like their brain is dysregulated, that they literally can't find the words, and they're really young with very limited life experience and a very narrow vocabulary. So what you're going to want to do is basically speak the message that you think that they're trying to get through to you. Okay. Does that make some sense? So you could say, are you trying to tell me? And then say the thing. Are you trying to tell me that you want me to change the radio station? Start screaming and covering their ears, you know? Are you trying to tell me that the food is too cold, when they spit it out and then throw it on the floor, right? So getting into that habit of providing some language for them can be a really big game changer. CJ, there's more, but that's what we have time for. And this is similar to Kimberly. Kimberly and I just did a session last week. I believe that this is the Kim I'm thinking of. There might be a different one. There might be 2 Kimberly Hills here, but I guess we'll find out. So Kim, let me know if this is the same Kim that I talked to last week. But a very vocal child is what she wants to know about, and setting healthy limits with them. Well, first of all, let's celebrate that they're vocal, because there are kids that will literally shut down and will not share anything. And that's their go-to. So the fact that your child is willing to communicate with you could be considered a strength. Now, of course, if they are dominating the airspace and airtime and won't let other people talk, or are yelling or using cuss words or all these other ways that being a very vocal child can lead to or be a part of, my guess is that you're trying to get a sense of how to support them in maybe knowing when to be vocal and when not. I think this is also around screaming over you when you're trying to communicate with her. So when we talked a bit about this, but it's really about coaching them through, like I just was saying to CJ about, oh, you're trying to say something. Wow, I really can't hear you when you scream. And you can even go, ooh, that hurts my ears. Can you try that again in a quieter voice? And if she can't, because it's actually just a total lid flip moment, too upset, you can say, just work on the calming down part. Like, how can we get your lid back on, sweetheart? How can we, like, shall we go to the other room? Let's go see what so-and-so's doing, and just redirect their attention. You can also encourage breaths. You can encourage taking a break. There are a lot of options that we're going to be going deeper into in December. And I know Kim, and I just checked, this is the Kim I talked to last week, Kimberly. I really want you to come to that December training on December 3rd, okay? And I'll make sure to reach out to you and get you that link once the registration's ready. But save the date, everybody, December 3rd to December 9th. Really great training coming up on calm down strategies for you and calm down strategies for the kids, so that you're not stuck into these power struggles and big emotions with not knowing where to go from there, okay? All right. So I would, again, consider it communication. Really try to test it out. And this goes for CJ too. If you're trying, are you trying to tell me this and they are not able to pull it together, then you go through a bit of emotion coaching and moving towards calming down. Oh, I see that you're too upset right now to use your words. Your face is red, you're making fists, you're starting to swing at me. So you can say, did I get that right? Yes, so mad. Oh, and you're so mad. Okay, got it. Well, it's not okay to hit me, so you're going to need to stop, and you can make some space like this. You actually put your hands where in front of them, and you move your body away to make space and stand really strong and say, not okay to hit, mommy, not okay to hit, right? And you can say, can you stop and calm your body, or do you need to take a break on the couch, or do you need to go to your room to take a break? Are you ready to stop hitting and put your hands down? Okay, it seems like you're not ready, sweetheart. So why don't you go ahead and go sit on the couch, or why don't you go ahead and go to your room, and walk them through the steps of getting to that calmer place. I have a whole training about that, so we can't go into more detail than that, but that's a little example of how it might sound. All right, so we're about to wrap, but before we do, I want to hear from the 3 people who are here. Even if you're a guest, I know I have a guest joining to watch. Go ahead and share one thing you got out of this. Do me a favor and do each other a favor and just share one thing you got out of it. And the reason why is because, again, like, this helps you to solidify something that you're taking away from this. I want to know what your takeaway is. Okay. So go ahead and do that while I set up the next question. Okay. One thing you've learned, and if nothing goes into the comments, I'm going to wonder if anybody's there. Help me out. Okay. Oh, and that last one was also for Meredith. I better add her to that. Yeah, so she knows where to tune in. Okay. Meredith. Yes. Oh, Meredith. I love Meredith. Meredith and I went to college together, and then she's now had children. It's been a long time ago, and reached out for some support. So I'm so glad you're here, Meredith. And I'm glad I was able to get to your question today. Yay, Catherine. Yes. Help kids say the words instead of just telling them no. I'm just telling them to. Yeah, right. So find the actual words. You're going to assume that their brain is not capable of generating the language they need. Okay. Yeah, really good. I love it, Patricia, or Catherine, Patricia. Thank you. And anyone else who's listening to the replay or listening right now, please do take a moment to go ahead and write something into the comments. Okay. And as this populates, if you're tagged in this, you'll be able to come back and see other folks' takeaways too. One thing I would say too is, really look at getting ahead of these big emotional upsets, right? And that's, again, looking at the routine, looking at the, are the limits clear? Have you won your child's cooperation? And if you haven't yet, go ahead and take the quiz to help you find the spots where you could use the most attention, and also apply for a strategy session. It's not letting me comment right now with that quiz link, so you'll have to go scroll up the comments and find it in there. It's in there. Okay. It says Parent Discovery Quiz with a link. Catherine still has a newborn, but this is so helpful to start thinking about. Catherine, I'm so glad you're here, and congratulations, Mama. What a gift you brought into the world. So happy for you, sweetheart. That's wonderful. And I think you found me through Sarah Kowalski, so I'm really glad you're in her community as well. So I know she has a lot of new mamas and single mamas planning to have babies that are all together. All right, so we're gonna hop from babies to teenagers, but gosh, you know, Patricia or Catherine Patricia, this is a good preview. So Barbara and Lilac would like to know more about staying calm and responding appropriately with an older teen and young adult when they're acting aggressively. Okay. Well, aggression comes in a lot of different forms. So without knowing what it is, it's hard to say exactly what it is that I would be doing. But I think that Lilac, you mentioned shouting issues and anger issues with your 16-year-old. Is that right? And then I think for Barbara, you were talking about, you know, having kind of a big ego and attitude. Here's what's interesting about teens and tweens, and anyone else who's listening can probably relate to this as an adult as well, that if you don't know the reason why something is the way it is, or something's being asked of you, or you're getting feedback, if you don't know the intention of the person speaking to you, and you don't know the reason why something is happening, then you're not going to get on board as a tween and a teen very easily. If you're very lucky sometimes, and I don't know if it's so lucky because then you have to build them up later, but if you have a very like goes with the flow, amicable child, they might do it anyway. But at some point, they're going to realize that they've been doing that for too long, and they might even rebel later, being very clear about, I just did what I was told, and I never really thought about why I was doing it, right? And that's when a lot of times they get this sort of righteous anger that really accelerates their personal growth and their sense of identity, which is exciting. For some of us, for some kids, it's now at 2 that they have that righteous anger and that really clear sense of, I'm not on board, so I'm not gonna, you know? And so whatever end of the spectrum your child is on, this will be useful to you. You need to know the reason why. You need to know the reason why you're asking them to do things a certain way. You need to know the reason why things are the way they are. And I really want you to take a little audit of the next 3 to 5 conflicts you have, Barbara and Lilac, with your older kids, where you get into a conflict, and ask the question, was it really clear about why this thing was happening, you know, why I was making the ask or sharing the observation I was, or giving the feedback or making the request? Was I clear about why that was happening? Do I know what the reason why, and did I communicate it? And then the second thing is, did I leave some space for their input, for them to, you know, wrap their head around that and ask some questions or challenge it and get a chance to talk it through and hash it out? Because teens and tweens are really good at seeing what our blind spots are, where we are just operating off of just because. And I'm not saying, Lilac and Barbara, that you do this a lot or even at all, but it is an area that when I work with parents of teens, like I have a client right now who has a child who has transitioned their gender identity and is in the middle of that transition. And until my client could get behind it in her requests around that and really know why, it wasn't just because it made her uncomfortable or just because she thinks it's the right thing to do, but she didn't know why yet. They had so much conflict and their relationship was very, very, very strained. But then when she got back and she was able to talk through and get in touch with the reasons why she felt the way she felt. First of all, she ended up saying very different things to her child because she had got that clarity and realized, oh, I'm just coming from a place of fear on this one. And actually this other one is actually a real health concern. So we are going to need to consult a professional and go through the steps. Getting that clarity was wildly helpful for her in her relationship with her teenager, as you can imagine, right? Yeah. Because saying like, just because, like, I don't want to use your new pronouns, or I don't want to use your new name because it makes me uncomfortable. Like, that's not going to align her with her child. Yeah. But when she was able to realize like what was hard about that for her, she was able to get through some of that. She was able to align with it, but then partner with her child saying, it's going to be hard for me to adopt new names and pronouns. I'm gonna ask you to please help me with that, and I will do my best is the part I can do, and I will do my best to help our family members get on board too. Now they're aligned instead of like, kind of in this power struggle and then they stomp away. They're like, oh, we can actually go forward together. So that's something I would think about when I think about aggression, like where's it coming from? Oftentimes it's a sense of being misunderstood, of supreme frustration, of like not buying into the things that are being asked of them, or the ways that their freedoms are being limited, or the ways that people are sort of asking of them. So hopefully it's helpful, Barbara and Lilac. It really helped with my teenagers too. Like I couldn't just randomly say, hey, Max, it's time to clean the bathroom on his free time, because he already had the concept of I'm not at school and this is my time, And so we had to really work towards, well, part of your time is also helping with the household responsibilities and cleaning up after yourself. What could that look like? And then we were able to plan forward. Last thing I have to say about this piece is connect as much as you can before you correct. So connect with them outside of that topic too. Like it's really good to hash it out, but I want to make sure that you and your child or children are having a relationship that like thrives outside of the areas of conflict. So for your 20-year-old, if it's about helping out on the farm, for example, I think that was Barbara, then you're going to want to make sure that not every conversation, or like 9 out of 10 conversations, is just about work and farming and what they're doing or not doing right, or what their next job is. That's being more of a task manager and a boss, but your other side of your relationship needs attention too. And I'll leave you with this, and this is from Melissa Alves as well, who wants to motivate her child to do chores that he doesn't want to do. The first step in motivation is helping them see that you're on their side and you are a team. And a key way you can do that is to get into their world and connect with them positively 4 times to every 1 negative. A 4-to-1 ratio is what it takes to keep a relationship in a positive status. And it's more like 10-to-1 in a romantic relationship, by the way, which is why I'm not a relationship coach, just kidding. But there's a lot that needs to work, a lot of work that happens in the romantic space. And I actually have a marriage coach in my program who gives seminars on communication fixes and strategies between partners and or parents and caregivers. It can be your nanny, it can be your sister, it can be the auntie, it can be the godparent, it can be the teacher. But adult relationships where there's high stakes, it's more like 10-to-1. Luckily with kids and low stakes relationships, it's more like 4-to-1. But catch yourself. Are you doing 4 negatives to every 1 positive? Then you've spent all your relationship credit and you're running on fumes in your relationship. One thing that I had that client I mentioned whose child was transitioning do is for 2 straight weeks, I said, no negative feedback. I don't care what your child does. You're just not allowed to like get in there and give them give them any kind of negative feedback. You can let them know how you feel, but you're not allowed to criticize them, judge them, tell them to do it better, correct them, or anything for 2 straight weeks. And I just want you to focus on building the relationship. And what it did is it went from slamming doors to like child sitting on the couch next to her with head on shoulder. And that's where we started the real work. Does that make some sense? Yeah. So connecting before correcting, get into their world, try to get that 4-to-1 ratio is a great place to start. Yes, good. Okay, thank you for the hearts and comments. Jessica's here. Hi, Jessica. Glad you're here. Yes, and 15, 4, and 1. Yeah, you may or may not have been one of the examples we talked about today. So in the comments, if you would, as we're wrapping in our last minute or so here, let me know again, what is the takeaway that you got out of this? And that way you can remember like a key point that you can take away. But then it also will help us learn with each other in this group. And if you like something you heard today, also consider heading over to that blue button that's in the group. If you click on Raising Our Resilience group right at the top, you'll see a blue button that says invite. And it's a really great way to share the love, so we do these free talks and we have low cost events all throughout the year. And this is a great way for you to encourage other folks to lean into the mentorship and the community that's available. This is about to get a little funny. Hold on. Yeah, there was me for a second, but I just want to show you this. So here's our group. And right here is that blue invite button. And when you click it, all you need to do is type in your friends' names and you can search for them. So let's say I want to invite a friend named Samantha. And then it should populate below and you're like, oh yeah, I want to invite that Samantha. And then you hit send invite. So easy. And I just want to give a shout out, by the way, to Jennifer Cormier, who invited 14 of her friends last week when we were having 2 weeks ago when we were having our last webinar, so that they could catch the opportunity to watch, sign up for the webinar and learn more about the meltdowns, tantrums, and power struggles, and how to be calm and confident and what to do and say. So when you invite folks in, then they'll have the opportunity to also access trainings like today's and our upcoming big event, which is on December 3rd. That 6-day training with a 1-day calm parent reset at the end of it is so powerful. It's like people requested it, so we're doing it twice a year now, and you can have an opportunity to join us. So we'll be so happy to have you there. And with that, I will leave you with just knowing you don't have to do this on your own. Please, as a parent, don't let other parents parent alone. And you all get to have everything that you need as a parent. You deserve it, and it's available to you. And that's our mission here at Raising Our Resilience, is to leave no parent behind and to close the gap between this amazingly long job description we have as parents and the high stakes outcomes that we're all so invested in, raising resilient, capable, kind, compassionate, successful children. We need the gap in between is there's no training, friends. Where's that manual, right? Where's that onboarding? No other job with this much responsibility would not come with that support. So our mission is to support you and the other families who find their way to us. So, share your big heart and invite some other folks, and we'll all go further and more resiliently together. Lots of love to you all, and we'll see you next week. We'll be back for more next week at 2 p.m. All right, see you then. Bye for now, everybody. Give some love to each other in the chat, in the comments, and we'll see you next time.